What should I watch? Ooh, this one seems good. Wow, he got into MIT, Princeton, Yale, UPenn, and so many other schools? I wonder what his stats and ECs are. Let's see if he has the video. Ooh, here it is. Hey guys, it's Nathan. As you guys can tell by the intro and the title of the video, today I will be sharing all my stats and the ECs that got me into the Ivy League, MIT, and a bunch of other schools, as well as a lot of advice and some opinions I have about stats and ECs. I got a lot of requests to make this video, so here I am, finally giving this video to you guys. Now, before we start, I wanted to give a big thank you for all the love that you guys been showing me in my college decision reactions video, which, if you haven't checked that out already, you should check that out after watching this video. But anyways, thank you guys so much. It means a lot. I love y'all. I wanted to put a disclaimer that these are the advice that I've gained throughout my high school, and it worked for me in my college application journey, but it might not work for you. But I just want to share all the advice that I've learned, and hopefully it can help you guys in your college application journey. Anyways, let's get started. Also, I have my laptop with a bunch of notes I took, so yeah, I'm prepared. First off is grades. There's not much to say about grades. I initially thought that only like all A students could get in. I know my GPA is high, but still, I thought it was like only like perfect A students that were getting in because they are such competitive schools. I have a 3.97 unweighted when I was applying, and then also I think I have like a 4.46 weighted, but I don't know how our school does like the weighted GPA, but we mainly go off the unweighted GPA, which is what a lot of schools look at. And it's on a 4.0 scale. If you have all A's, you're at a 4.0, but every B you get, your GPA goes down. So I got 2 B's, one in AP Chem and one in like American History. And so that's why I have a 3.97. Some advice. Of course, I took AP Chem and I did get a B in it, but I've also always heard that it's better to take a harder course and get a worse grade in it than to get an A in a regular course. So in my example, it was better for me to get a B in AP Chem instead of getting an A in regular Chem. But what I'm saying is like, it's better to show the admissions officers that you're challenging yourself and do bad in the class than to go easy and get like an easy A. Grades aren't everything, but it's just a smart point that they look for. And even if you don't have straight A's, I think it's all right for you to have B's, especially in your freshman and sophomore year. That's where it's completely fine to make grades. Of course, your junior and senior year, you should be showing improvement and how you've been growing academically throughout that process. If you get a couple B's or if you don't have an all A honor roll, it's not that big of a deal. This might be a controversial opinion, but I think that your stats, grades, test scores, whatever, they're just like a standard requirement, and nothing in those categories will ever impress an admissions officer because they're just like numbers, and there's so many students who apply that have 4.0s, and because it's not that impressive, even if you have a 4.0, it's not that big of a deal if you don't have a 4.0. Does that make sense? Okay, for test scores, I took the SAT once, but I did so terrible on it and it was super hard for me, so I quit. But ACT. So I took my first ACT the summer after 8th grade, and then after that I've taken a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I took the ACT 7 times. That's right. Over the past 5 years, I've taken the ACT 5 times, starting in 8th grade. Yeah, I know. I've seen people in these videos are like, yeah, I've took the ACT or like SAT once or 2 times and I got a perfect score on the first time. Like, man, how do you do that? It took me forever to get the score I have right now. But anyways, yeah, it was a rough time. The highest score that I've ever gotten, like the composite score, was a 32, but my super score is a 34 because I got a 35 in math, 36 in science, 35 in English, and a 28 in reading. So you guys can tell which subject I had the hardest time in. Yeah, about that. It's kind of funny too because my highest score in each subject was from a different test. So when I had to send my super score to MIT, I had to send 4 different ACT tests because I did good in one subject, but I did bad in the others. The ACT is just simply a test to show the admissions officers how well you do under time conditions. And so I personally think it's an unfair way to classify students. One, because I did terrible on it, and two, just memorizing skills. It shows nothing else, and I hate it because it limits us students who are terrible at taking those tests. And it took me like 5 years to get to the score that I had. And I didn't even end up sending it to most schools because I didn't like it. I don't know if y'all would want to take advice from me on ACT studying, but I will show you the one book that is like an absolute holy grail. 1 second. I don't know where I've heard of this book, but this book right here, the ACT Prep Black Book, I 1000% recommend this book. ACT Prep Black Book. If y'all want to sponsor me, if you want to do a little collab, please hit me up. This book, it was mind-opening, and it helped me get almost perfect scores in most of the sections. It has so many skills that really worked for me, and the way that they taught me how to think about the ACT and like how to view the ACT, it helped me to understand how to study and how to take the ACT. The people who are getting good test scores, they understand how the test works. You're giving the inside scoop of how the test is made, so then you can get the perfect scores you need. This book follows this. It uses practice problems from the official ACT prep guide. I don't think it matters what year you get it, but I used this year, but it worked for me. If you want to study for the ACT, these 2 books will get you through most of it. And then, of course, in regards to when you should study them, I personally think the summer of sophomore year in high school is the best time to really get your ACT score or just your test score to where it needs to be or where you want it to be, because the summer of your junior year should be where you do one final big thing to add to your EC list, whether it's like an internship, a summer program, or just like research. And that's when you should also start to prepare for your college applications. I had to finalize my ACT score in the summer. No, I had to do it during senior year, and it's gonna be absolutely terrible if you do that, because not only will you have to manage senior year of high school, but also you have the stress of like finishing so many applications if you want to apply to a lot of schools, and then you have to worry about your test score. And a fourth thing is maintaining your extracurriculars that you do. Doing all that is too much. So I would not recommend you taking your ACT or test scores in your senior year. The very last time you should be taking a test score is the summer of your junior year. Ideally, it's the summer of your sophomore year, but if you can finish it by the summer of your junior year, that is good. If you can't, that's fine, because like me, I did not do that. Was I stressed? Yes, but now I'm fine. That's my advice. It's not a lot, but... Next is APs. So I got no 5s. My school, the way they do it is that they don't let students take AP classes until you are in your junior year. Of course, some students were like given exceptions, but I was not one of those students who got like an exception. And so I took my first APs in junior year, and every year you take AP classes, you have a maximum of 3 classes per year. So I could only take 6 AP classes in my entire high school. My junior year, I took AP Chem, AP Bio, and AP Lang, and I got a 4 in AP Bio and AP Lang, and a 2 in AP Chem. I only sent my AP Bio and AP Lang because those are 4s, but I didn't send my AP Chem to any schools. But the funny thing is that after I applied to MIT, and I think it was like sometime in February, they reached out to me and be like, hey, can you send in your AP scores? And so I only sent in my AP Lang and AP Bio because I was told to only send in 4s or 5s. Don't send anything lower than that. Like, it's not worth it. But then they emailed me again and be like, hey, we saw that you took AP Chem. Send us that score, please. I'm like, I don't think y'all want to see that, but they insisted on showing them my AP Chem score, and so I sent them my 2. But I still got in, which is crazy. So AP scores don't matter that much either. But yeah, if you are submitting scores to your AP exams, only send in 4s or 5s. Of course, they'll see that you took that AP class in your transcript, but do not send scores. That's what I recommend, at least. But do what you want to do. Oh yes, some advice on this is that it doesn't matter how many AP classes you take, but rather the perspective from what your school offers versus what you are doing. For example, let's say one school offers 30 AP courses over your 4 years, but you only take 7 of them. That's not as impressive as a student who goes to a school that only has 10 APs and they take 7 of them, you know? In the end, both students took 7 AP courses, but one was given more opportunities than the other. And so you should take as many as your school lets you, or as much as you can do, because that shows that you're really taking an advantage of the courses that their school offers, and that's what admissions officers are looking for, not how well you do on the test. But I know so many students who get into these schools that have all 5s on 10 to 16 AP courses. I'm like, how do you do that? But anyways, that was not me. It's all comparative what courses you take to just you and your school, so just keep in mind that, and don't feel too sad if there are certain students taking 10, 12 AP classes but you're only taking 3. It's because when you apply to these colleges, you'll have to send in the school's profile and they'll see all the courses that your school offered. And so they'll compare that to your transcript and see how well you've taken advantage of your school's course offerings. When they're looking at it, you have to think, did you make the most out of what your high school offered you? Are you willing to push yourself to your limits academically? And if you think you answered yes to those questions, then you're good in this course and stats section. Now it's time for my extracurriculars. So first I'm gonna just read through all of the extracurriculars that I did, and then I'm gonna talk about some advice and my opinions on what I think the best way to go about this is. Okay, so the first thing I did was that I was the co-president and founding member of a youth-led environmental organization. Basically what I did was that I oversaw a group of high school students across my state, and I coordinated bi-weekly meetings and communicated with other environmental groups in our community to host different events and other initiatives and collaborations. So we did like a bunch of newspapers, webinars, and things like that. It was an amazing experience. I loved it so much. I remember when I first started in sophomore year, an upperclassman reached out and she was like, hey, I'm starting this thing, do you want to join? I was like, sure. And I didn't think about it too much when I had first joined, but looking back now, it was one of the best things I've ever did, because I got to meet so many nice people and we did some amazing stuff, and I got to meet a bunch of cool people doing environmental things in my state, and I got to learn so much about what they do and like how they're helping the environmentalism community and how they're impacting the world, which I love. Anyways, the next thing I did was that I was a research student with a fellow student and my biology teacher, and we studied the archaeal interactions in our local bay. And what we did was we analyzed data and looked at the different relationships between certain abiotic and biotic factors. Basically, it's just research. And I learned about how to write scientific papers. And although we didn't get to finish the research, it was a great experience. And the reason I did this was during my junior year, I took a class called microbiology, and I became really interested in that. And my biology teacher did a bunch of stuff in that field. So I got to work with her and one of my friends to just look at other different points that she researched during her time. And the third thing I did was I was the president and head of the executive and policy committee in my school's student government association. And in my time at SGA, I did a bunch of things. I helped run events during my sophomore year as an activities committee member. And then my junior year, I was an officer and helped run our school convenience store. And then as president, I helped facilitate meetings, revise our policy, and then also I overlooked the entire student government at my school. And so I did a bunch of different things. One of the most important things I did was like to help initiate and implement projects, whether we were doing sustainable outreach or starting different programs. We did a lot, and I had so much fun doing that. Of course, I got my bonuses of the title of Stuco Prez. The family that I joined during my time at SGA and the upperclassmen at SGA helped me so much in my high school journey, and also helping me prepare for college applications, and I owe a lot to them. But anyways, I love SGA so much. Okay, yes, the fourth thing I did was that I was the president of my school's environmental club called Greenpeace Club. It was a pretty big club. I'm biased, but it was the best club at our school. And there were a lot of members. I put 60 because that's how many were on our team's page. I forced some of my friends to join, but it's the official number 60. We planned a bunch of events like school and community cleanups. We had info sessions and also school-wide thrift stores. And then we also did a protest during my sophomore year. And then the next thing I did was that I was the head ambassador, which is like the highest position in that program of the leadership academy at my school. I helped my school run different open house events and events for like incoming students to our school. And I basically helped out with the admissions center and gave campus tours, and I also did work over the summer. The next thing I did was that I was the math and physics lab proctor at my school, and what I did was I tutored students at my school in various subjects of math and physics. So for every subject, I would spend the night 2 hours just helping tutor students who come to my lab. So it was from like 7 to 9. And I would just tutor. But sometimes people wouldn't come, like especially during COVID when we were online. No one would come, and so it was just basically free volunteer hours. But I had a lot of fun with my fellow lab proctors. And then I also put that I did cross country. I've just been doing that sport ever since I was in 8th grade, 7th grade. I was one of the co-captains, but I was not good at running. I went to a boarding school. It was a good group of people, but I wasn't even the best out of the people in that group. So I don't know how, but I was just on the team for so long that they just put me as one of the co-captains. But anyways, it looks good. It looks good on paper, so I just put that. Show that I'm an all-rounder. I do all sorts of things. And the last thing I did was that I was the lead keyboard at my local church worship band. And every Sunday, I would go to my church and perform for our worship band. And it was like super easy, but yeah, that's it. As you can see, I only put 8 of them, even though I had 10 slots. And this was one of the things I was worried about because of course I did other extracurriculars, like I was in Key Club, National Honor Society. I did so many other things. I only put 8 because out of all the things I did throughout my entire high school process, these were the things that I really cared about, and I invested a lot of time in these. And another thing I wanted to talk about is this concept of spike student versus all-rounder student. These are the things that I've heard about from a bunch of upperclassmen, and I've seen a lot of articles about these when I was like researching extracurriculars to do. Where the lighting's changing. But anyways, a spike student is someone who's very, very good at one thing, whether you're really good at one sport or that you've done so many things in mathematics or like did a lot of research and whatever. You're really good and devoted to one specific thing. And on the other side, the all-rounder student is that you're good and have a lot of leadership in a bunch of things. And so this is like a spectrum. And I think I fall in line more of the spike student than the all-rounder student, but I'm like not all the way a spike student. So I feel like I'm like, if this is a line, I'm like somewhere here. Does that make sense? Anyways, why I wanted to share this is that there's so many ways that you can form your extracurricular list, and I've seen it done so many ways. Of course, you like know the prodigy students who are crazy good at like one thing, and like it's like obvious that they're gonna get into certain schools, but there's also a bunch of students who focus a lot on leadership and things like that. And so I wanted to do like a mix of it because one of my biggest passions is environmentalism, and I applied as a environmental engineer or a biomedical engineer or just like anything in like sustainability engineering and environmentalism. And so that's what I wanted to highlight in my extracurricular section, because the first EC was the whole thing was that I was like co-president of a youth-led environmental organization. And then the second thing was, of course, that I did research directly in the aspects of environmentalism, because I would study how microbiology correlates to our community and the environment and ecosystem. And then me being the president of my school's student government is leadership, but I talked in my additional information section about how we focused on certain sustainable policies that we worked on, like a more sustainable cafeteria or different initiatives to encourage students to live more eco-friendly on campus. And then the fourth thing was that I was like the president of our environmental club. And so as you can see, the top 4 things I did were all around environmentalism, either directly or indirectly in some way. But that's why I would be considered more of a spike student. But at the same time, I didn't like win any awards. You know, I just did some community service and I just did some leadership positions at my school, but it still is influential. But then of course I did mix in some other aspects like sports, music, and tutoring to show that I did other things in my free time. Now, there's so many ways you can go about explaining your extracurriculars, and sure, there is like some aspect to what extracurriculars you do, but as you can see in my extracurricular list, you don't know too much about what I actually do. So what impresses the admissions officers more is how you share what you do and show how you're passionate about it. And I explained that in my additional information section, and also I wrote essays and supplements about these specific things. And so that's how I think I made them stand out a lot more than they would have, because these descriptions are so short and I spent so much time trying to like compact everything I do into the limit we have, but it's so short that you can't possibly do that. And if they actually mean a lot to you, you'll share that to the admissions officers. And so that's what I did. And even in your high school experience, you'll do a lot of, at first you sign up for something, and if you realize that you're not passionate about it, then don't do it. There isn't some one extracurricular that would automatically impress the admissions officers and get you into a school, but you have to show how passionate you are in certain extracurriculars. An exercise that I found helpful while writing my extracurriculars and choosing what extracurriculars I wanted to put down is what I called like a why I do what I do. So what I did was that every single extracurricular I did, I would talk about just why you're passionate in it, what skills that you've learned, how it impacted your life, and how you'll be able to use the skills you learned in that extracurricular to apply it in your life. When you talk about all the extracurriculars you did, or you'll find like there are certain ones that you're very passionate about and have a lot of love for compared to the other ones that you don't. And so that's how I would rank them. In the end, I only did put 8 extracurriculars because that's what I thought fit. And it's completely fine if you have less or more. To put it in context, MIT only lets you put 4 of them. And so I put my top 4, but it basically shows you like if MIT is only asking you for like 4 extracurriculars, it kind of shows how much it matters, in the sense that the top 5 are like the most important ones, but the other ones under that, they don't really look too deeply into. Because I remember when I got accepted into UPenn, one of the admissions officers sent me a letter saying your extracurriculars and your research and your leadership really made an impact in your application, and we thought that was really cool. But those were like the top 4 things I did. They didn't talk about like cross country and like piano. It's like good to put in there, but anyways, I'm rambling. But it basically shows that your top 3 to 5 extracurriculars should be the very most important to you. Now, the honors section. This section I was very worried about when I was applying to colleges because I didn't have any notable awards. There's so many people who apply and get first place in science and math Olympiad. They win competitions in ISEF, debate, science fair. They have national merit awards or like even commended scholars, AP scholars. I didn't have any of that. Like I did nothing. So I was really worried that this would hinder and be one of my weaknesses in my application. But I did end up putting that I was a semifinalist for the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship and the Gates Scholarship, because while I was applying to colleges, I also applied to those scholarships. And after I submitted my application to the colleges, I got my updates on my scholarships. And so I sent that I was semifinalist for those 2 prestigious scholarships. And I ended up not getting any of them, but it was technically an award that I put in. And also the awards that I put in while applying was that I did win school awards for biology and math. I was very consistent. Every single year, I've always gotten the math and biology award, and so I'm very grateful for that. But of course, it was like a local award. It wasn't like a bigger award. but it was still something I put down because something is better than nothing. In the end, if you're thinking about, should I put it or not? Worst case scenario, they'll look at it and be like, oh well, and they'll just move on. And I know I said in the extracurricular section, you don't have to put everything, but honestly, if you want to put it down. I don't think it matters that much. But anyways, I did that. And then, yes, the biggest honor I put was that I did a summer program the summer of my junior year called MOSTEC. I pronounce it MOSTEC, but I think it's officially pronounced MOSTEC. It's called the MIT Online Science, Technology, and Engineering Community. MOSTEC was a program where I took 2 classes and I did science writing and also sustainable design, which I ended up writing like essays about in my experience in MOSTEC, and so it helped me in that aspect. I did win an award in that program where I was chosen among the science writing students to have my work submitted into the annual publication for like the best of science writing. So I think I also put that, and so I put a total of 4 awards. Another thing was that MOSTEC gave me the courage to apply to MIT because I initially wasn't going to apply to these like IVIES and MIT because I genuinely thought I wouldn't get in, but I would never have the courage to apply if I didn't surround myself in that MOSTEC community where everyone was so uplifting. And I talked to like a bunch of the MIT admissions officers and they were like, why not apply? Like, what's the worst that can happen? And so that's what I did. I really love that community, and so I very much recommend you to do something during your summer. At the end of the day, if it doesn't help you at all in your college application process, it's a good memory to have. When I started the college application process, I had the wrong mindset because I thought that my ECs and stats wouldn't impress the admissions officers enough, and so the only thing that I could possibly change is my essays, but that's not the case. Certain schools, UPenn, I wrote their essays very last minute, aka 3 hours before it was due. I wrote 3 essays. The 2 required for original, like all students, and then the 1 for the dual degree program. Of course, I had like a template that I used for other schools because the prompts were very similar, but I couldn't have anyone to peer review them. I didn't even read through them twice. I just wrote the first things that I thought in mind and I submitted it. So obviously that was not the reason I got into Penn. It was other things like extracurriculars. I know teacher recommendations are another very big aspect in the application because a lot of admissions officers say they really look at that. But anyways, what I was saying was that like, I thought essays was only created for to show the admissions officers what I'm passionate, what I care about, but your extracurriculars show you how you use your free time and how you do outside the classroom. And so you can tell so much about what you do. And like, as you can see, I was very passionate in my community service and environmentalism outreach, but also leadership in my community at school and out of school. And so basically what I want to say out of this whole speech is stats are just a checkpoint to be met. ECs are a way to tell a story of how you used your time and what you did throughout your entire high school process, because ECs are an important way to show the admissions officers what you find important and what type of person you are. I've heard so many people say this. It's always best to start early. Start thinking about what you want to do, what you want to show in your EC list early on in your high school year. But if you don't, that's fine, because I didn't genuinely start thinking about colleges until my junior year. I didn't know any of the names of those colleges I applied to. Harvard, Georgia Tech, and my state schools. That's it. Like, those are all the colleges I've heard of in my life. Like, I didn't even know Yale. Like, you're stressing yourself out more by worrying about what you didn't do in the past, but just focus on what you can do starting now and just work and try to do your best with what you can do now and just hope for the best. There's so many things that you can't control, so just focus on the things that you can control. And the one thing that you can control is the story that you tell in your college application. At the end of the day, the admissions officers read one document of papers, and so you have to connect these different things and tell a story of what you're passionate in, what you learned, and how you can impact the college that you are applying to. If you have a certain school that you want to get into, every school has core values, and just look at those core values and try to align with that, because that's what I did. And it worked out. Yes, and also your stats and extracurriculars shouldn't show what you accomplished, but rather what it meant to you, what impact it had to your life, and how you impacted the people around you, what you've learned from everything, and then how you're going to use what you learned in your future, which is going to be your college experience. If you can show that to the admissions officers in your college application, I think you have a pretty good shot at doing good during this application season. But good luck to everyone, all you future college students, all of you high school seniors, or anybody watching this video. I give my wishes to you guys. Good luck, you got this. Remember that you got this. Stay tuned for future videos I'm making. I'm thinking about a lot of college related content, but also when I go to MIT, I'm gonna be doing vlogs and other fun stuff. So stay tuned to that, subscribe and like this video if you want to. But thanks you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!